So this is just a review. So for now, just focus on the screen. So the letter of agreement is our first step. What we're gonna look for is to create a problem statement. Our problem statement, to create it, we need to do research and programming. To do that, we need to have primary users. So those are the people who significantly spend time in the space. Family who comes in, you have to ask all the right questions. And commercial spaces, it could be things like front of the house would be the clients, and then the secondary users, and this is why we're looking at that. Primary users, it would be the clientele. Secondary users would be the staff that would clean in the evening, and so the lighting has to be different for that. Okay, so that secondary users are anybody who is going to show up in the space, like guests, staff, whatever. Okay, our homework was to create a mood board based on the problem statement, and you guys already had that. And then we watched some of the things. The next thing you need to know is lifestyle and function. So you want to ask questions of your client. In this particular client, you want to ask what's the day in the life of them is, and the weekend might be different. Whatever it is, you need to find that out. We talked about relationships. Relationships are not between between people anymore, because that's the primary users. Relationships is between spaces. So where you locate a nursery when you have a newborn versus where you would locate the teenagers when they're older. Here they're showing the proximity of, we talked about the laundry being close downstairs to the outside before you invent the washing machine, the dryer, because what happens is that we want to make sure that the wet clothes that are heavy are closer to the outside. As soon as the dryer is invented, we want it upstairs because that's where most of it's created, so we don't need to be going up and down. Okay, that's what a relationship is. We talked about, did we talk about Bobcat yet? Okay. Didn't we talk about the fact that I thought we talked about the fact that the pool, did we talk about the pool yet? No? Okay, let me talk about the pool. So if we had, let's say I needed a pool built, right? And I figured out it would take me, if I do it by myself, it would take me hours to dig that hole, right? And I figured out it's 40 hours for me. And if I am making $100 an hour, and again, I'm just giving you round numbers, that would be 40 times 100, 4,000. Did everybody catch how that worked? Yeah. Okay, but what if you came to me and said, hey, Miss S, I'll dig your hole for your pool for $2,000. It's like back to the conversation we had about the kitchen. For $2,000, and I'll do it in 3 days, and I can start on Monday. Now, we asked all those questions, right? Because if I want it yesterday and I'm ready to dig my hole and she's not available, that's not helpful to me. We also want it shorter than a week because I can do it in a week. So if she can do it in a week, I'm happy. If it's longer than a week, I might not be happy. But if it's shorter than a week, we're good. So she said 3 days, and she's saving me 50%, right? So half the money. So that's a good deal for me, right? I would take it. I'd say good. Now she shows up now, but how is that a good deal for her? Because she's not making as much then as I am. So how is that a good deal for her? So here's how it works. She shows up on Monday early. Because why? Because remember I said if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired. Okay, so, right? And then so she is up on time and she goes, Miss S, I'm getting ready to go. And I'm like, it's Monday, see you later. I'm gonna go get my drug, right? I'm gonna go teach. So I come here, I get back, and the hole is done. I'm like, you said 3 days. She goes, I said 3 days because I wanted to under promise and over deliver. So she gave herself more than time. I said, but how were you able to do it? She goes, I did it in 2 hours. How did you do it in 2 hours? What she had was a Bobcat. I had not that leverage. I would have been doing it with what? My hands are like a shovel, right? It would have taken me longer. And if she used a shovel, it would have taken her longer. But a Bobcat, she goes, that's a big shovel. Does that make sense? So why am I telling you guys this? On the kitchen story, I have a Bobcat that my friend or so-called friend didn't have. And the Bobcat is my brain. Do you all understand? I had knowledge that could make me solve that faster. But I got that knowledge by going to school. I got that knowledge by practicing. I got that knowledge by doing other projects. So I knew the dimensions. I knew that. That's why when I asked you guys to solve for it, you were probably not at the same speed as I was at that point. And you could see how you needed some information and you needed some knowledge as to what costs money, how much does it cost, how you can, do that better. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So the Bobcat. So what we're doing in here is sharpening our mind. And that's your Bobcat, right? And leverage. And that's what you're able to bring to the clients as to why you should be hired. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So relationships, learning how to do relationships is one of the ways to have your Bobcat. And we talk about the kitchen being near the dining room and not that we have to go through the living room to get to the dining room. We talked about space requirements, small space versus large space. Today we're going to speak a lot more about how to do space because there's a whole lecture on that. And then we talked about this. Let me talk about this. Okay, so if I had a Rolex, right? That's a Rolex. And I came up to you like the guy in the picture at the bottom. And I said, hey, I got a Rolex. How much would you pay for that Rolex? Or would you think? He said, hell, I'll sell it to you for $200. It's a good deal or a bad deal?
That's a good deal.
It's a good deal,
Wow, though.
right? As long as it's a real Rolex, right? If you can verify it. It's a good deal. Now we go to the pawn shop at the top, right? The same Rolex is now $5,000. It's still a pretty good deal. Why? Because now we know for sure it's verified and it's probably half the price of the original Rolex, which if we bought at Tiffany's would have been $10,000. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But why is the same Rolex valued differently from one place to the other?
What if you
It's how it's presented. Very good. So do you understand that you as a designer can affect the price of things? You as a designer can have and make experience different. So what is it that Tiffany's does to make sure, or Rolex does to make sure that that value? Okay, let me ask you. Can you buy a Seiko? I know you're not. Okay, she's like, well, why would you want to watch anyway when we have Apple Watches now? Okay, I get it. I'm giving it as an example. Can you buy a watch that's $20 or $50?
Yes.
Does it keep better time or less better time than a Rolex? Then why was somebody willing to pay $10,000 for the thing that does the exact same thing for $50? Why?
Because it's presented to be nicer.
They was trying to be.
How did they do that? How? It's the same function. The function doesn't change. Have you? I know you ladies like purses. I love my purses. Love my purses, right?
Yeah.
A purse carries stuff. Nice purses are made out of maybe leather or something fancy, right? But I can get a leather purse for $50, and there are purses that go for how much? 5,000, 10,000, like, shoes, same thing. So are they made out of way better material? How are they accomplishing this? How does Rolex, how does Tiffany's, how does a purse company, how does that happen? What is it they do?
Commercialize it?
How? What can we do as designers that can help them to make the product elevated? I'm gonna give you an answer because now I'm torturing you guys. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the difference between, and that's why I show you pictures. Space. How much something surrounded by space makes the difference. Think about it. If you go to a thrift store, can you find a very, very nice high-end product? Absolutely. But to get to it, how much do you have to look through? And how squished in is it? Does that make sense? You go to a secondhand store like Plato's, it gets a little better, right? But still, it's not that. If you go to buy a Burberry coat, right? Let's say, or a raincoat, you're not gonna find it on a rack. You're gonna have a wall that's gonna have a peg, and it's gonna have it hanging by itself. It's gonna be put around the space. Does that make sense? You walk into Tiffany's, you're not gonna see 20 watches on display. You're not gonna see maybe but one or two. And when you wanna look at something, they're not gonna just take it out and give it to you. They're gonna put it on a velvet pretty thing, and they're maybe gonna give you champagne with it. Does that make sense, you guys? So for that reason, how much you surround something with space makes a difference. Does that make sense? So look at this. Barbie dolls. 10 for $1 or something like that at a thrift store. And then collector dolls, which is still Barbie. There's a Barbie that's worth like millions. It's in the vault somewhere. By how much it's surrounded. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Look at the next one. There's our thrift store. Can we find the Burberry thrift store? Possibly. Because somebody's gonna maybe get rid of it. They lose weight, they gain weight, whatever happens, right? They like a different style, but look at how it's sold originally. Do you all understand? So space planning becomes a big deal. That's why today, how I planned that space made me money. Do you all understand? Space planning, big deal for designers. Because it's the value. You will never find Rolex on discount originally, because they understand it's a luxury item. We don't discount it, we just elevate it to, if I'm wearing this watch, if I'm driving this car, do you remember the car, the Cadillac? The evolution of luxury. I'm driving this, I made it. That's what you're selling. Does that make sense? And the way to do it is with some space. How you display it and everything, but space. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay, and we'll learn a little bit more about space today. Space relationships, we talked about, and we're gonna do even more.
So it's a space,
We talked about this. Remember, I showed you guys this before? Remember that? Okay, and we did James Bond, we did environmental factors, remember that? Right, so we went over that. All right, let me ask you the next question. We did all of this. Okay, environmental factors. Did we do the mechanical considerations yet?
No.
Okay, let's do that. Let me ask you a next question. All right. There used to be on HGTV, I think, a show like Exotic Homes or Weird Homes or some version thereof. And this guy, an architect, came on and he was showing his parents' home. And he told a little bit of his life story. He said, hey, I was going to school for architecture. I went to my parents and I said, I want to be an architect. Can you pay for my education? And the parents said, okay, we'll pay for your education, but when you graduate, we want to be your first clients. You design our house, that's your payment to us to do it. And so he said, that sounds great, that's a good deal, I'd take that deal. Anyway, somebody pay for my education and then I just get to work for them right away, and yeah, that's a good deal, especially my parents. Okay, so here's the problem. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing that he designed, but here's the problem for you guys, and see how you would solve it, and see if you learn how to think, right? Because that's what I'm teaching you. So his parents said, we want a house, but we want a house that looks like nature made it. And he goes, explain that. He goes, look, in the real world of animals, right? There's no, the animal can't go to Home Depot or Lowe's and go, I want a 2x4s so I can build straight line, right? They how do they build them? They collect, like little birds collect stuff, and it's a nest and it's always in the round, teeth, claws, whatever, right? So it's never straight lines. So now he has a problem. He has to build a human house. He can't go to Home Depot and go, can you carve me a little, round wood, right? So here's one problem. Tell me how you would solve it. Okay, we need vents, right? This is mechanical considerations. So let me kind of go through and show you what I mean. Mechanical considerations are things like, no, I just fucked it up. Sorry. Oh my God, I'm so pissed at myself. I went too fast. So mad at me. Okay, so what we need is a vent, right? Like, see this vents? And lights and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so what they needed was, they needed them not straight. And so when I ask the students, if I don't mess it up, and I say, how do you do that? How do you get a round, object? And everybody usually would say, oh, you go get a custom, or you go get a mesh or something like that, right? And then I say, okay, that's all expensive. And what if I just asked you for a different solution that's inexpensive, easily found, can be found anywhere? Now you just saw the solution. But I would say all you have to do, did you all see? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so don't say anything then if you saw. If I asked you that, how do you create a vent that's not straight, right? How would you do? Like if you needed a house that had no straight lines, right? How would you create a vent that's not straight? Besides custom, and that's what I just said.
I had no idea.
Okay, but here's how you teach yourself to think differently outside the box. What if I said to you, let's reward the problem? That's what I want you guys to do. Do you hear me? So listen to what I'm saying. I want you to reward the problem. So if I say I'm looking for vents, you get stuck because you're thinking vents. But what are we looking for? Let's define what we're looking for. We're looking for a round object, like a, not round, but like a half a bowl, right? Like a half a basketball or something like that, bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need it to be metal, right? And we need it to have holes in it. So we need an object that's like a bowl, metal, and has holes. Can we find an object like that?
Yes.
Don't say it out loud yet. Can we find an object like that almost anywhere?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Hold on. What can we find in Walmart? Walmart. That's metal, round object, like a bowl. That's metal and has holes in it.
I think maybe I did see it now.
A drainer?
Mm.
Go ahead.
Says drainer?
It's strainer.
Strainer.
Okay.
Can you find strainers anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Do they come in different sizes?
Yes.
Are they
do.
usually metal?
Yes.
Do they have holes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do we get there? Do you see what I did? I didn't say vent. If I said vent, none of us, including me, would have gotten there. Do you all understand?
Right.
But if I say, what is it? Break it down. What is it? So when I was looking at that kitchen, I said, what is it? What's missing here? Storage. Okay, how can we get more storage, more efficient? What's missing? Seating. How do we get seating? So I needed, do you follow what I mean?
Right.
Break it down. So there it is. See the strainer. That was a mess. See, instead of a vent, they needed a strainer. And they have strainers that have end on it, but they have strainers that don't have a bottom foot to it. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it could have solved that man's problems when he needed those type of vents. Does that make sense? But that's what mechanical considerations are. Okay? We also need to consider time, right? Let me ask you, if you're designing for somebody who is in the military, and we have a lot of that around here, correct?
Yes.
They're in the military, they're gonna move in and they're gonna move out in 3 years. And they say, we need books, we like books, we want books, we want books. Are we gonna do built-ins?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are we gonna do built-in
Oh.
bookshelves?
If they like books, yes.
For
No,
3 years?
no.
I'm going like this to her, not to you guys. If we want books, they're gonna leave in 3 years. Are we gonna do built-in bookshelves, like built-in?
No.
No, thank you. That's a good answer. No. Why? Because they're gonna move.
They're gonna move.
We're gonna wanna buy them bookshelves that can fold up.
Mm-hmm.
We want stuff that's easy to fold up, maybe stack on each other, you know what I mean? That they can flip over and pack stuff and travel.
Right.
That's what we're gonna look for. But if somebody says, hey, I'm gonna die in this house. This is it. This is my dream house. I'm never moving. I like the location. This is a compound. My children are gonna inherit it. This is gonna be it. And they like books. Are we doing built-ins?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Do you all understand?
Yes.
Absolutely we are. Do you understand the difference between time?
Yes.
Also, time is important when it comes to installation things. Some products, and we'll talk about that, when they arrive, you gotta give your clients knowledge, like, just cause we order it today does not mean it's gonna arrive tomorrow. Does that make sense? So timing become a big deal. Okay, here's the next question, follow me. What is the first piece of furniture that establishes a philosophy? Do you see how I'm teaching you that we have so much control as designers? Do you guys see that? We have control over space, and that makes a difference for our clients' perception of luxury versus not luxury, and so on and so forth, correct?
Yeah.
So, what is the first piece of furniture that establishes a philosophy? That actually dictates how people are gonna behave because it establishes a philosophy.
Couch.
Huh? A couch. What philosophy does it establish?
Where people are gonna sit, traffic flow.
What philosophy does it establish? And I'm up here for a reason, because you know I'm not doing this just to entertain myself, although it is entertaining. What first piece of furniture that actually establishes a philosophy or establishes a way of behaving for a lot of people? A lot of people.
So it must be couch.
Oh, like,
A table.
Counter. The floor. No.
Drawer.
I
Dresser.
have no idea.
All right,
I'm just guessing.
stop and ask questions. So the question
Why are
is,
you standing?
what do you mean by first piece of furniture? So first, let's go back in history. First, as in first, not first as in the first one you buy,
Oh, okay.
right? Because you guys
Is it
have
a
to
throne?
understand the terminology I'm asking. We're the first person. Okay, let's go back in history. What's the longest that we know civilization is Egypt, correct?
Yes.
Right? It's before Romans and Greeks and all of that.
Right.
So Egyptians. In Egypt, right, what was their governmental way of being? What did they have? Did they have democracy? Did they have presidents? What did they have? They had pharaohs, very good, right? So when we see that depicted, do they depict them seated? Yes.
Yeah.
And he is very tall. He's taller than the people standing in front of him.
Right.
Was it because the pharaohs
We're talking.
were all 7 feet and everybody
No.
else was 3 feet? Like
No.
everybody was like me and they were double me?
So they
No.
were on thrones of
So,
some sort.
aha, that's the key.
Sayings.
And then they portray them seated on a throne. Does anybody watch the Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
You
No.
see what I mean?
Lame.
I love that. Anyway, so here's the thing. A throne, why are they fighting over one throne? They're all kings, but the one throne is it, right? It's because the throne is a piece of furniture that dictates a way of being. So I am somebody because here I am. I have a throne and I'm standing, I'm above you guys. You guys are nobodies. Just little peons.
Designer, honey.
I am divine. You're not so much. You follow what I'm saying? I got power. The pharaohs had power over their people. Not only power, but because they believed that, they had life after life. Go ahead. You don't like me as your husband? Go ahead. Go ahead and poison me. What's going to happen? Because, no, what's going to happen is I need all of you people with me when I go die. So if you're my servant and you're taking care of me, you don't want me dead. Because then you have to be dead to go with me into the afterlife to serve me. You follow what I'm saying? That's a major power of a throne, right?
To protect you.
Think about this. If I'm talking to a child and I'm standing like this and the child is little, right, short, how intimidating is me going, I'm telling you, do not do that.
Right.
That's intimidating because I am towering. Again, it's a throne. I own things. You don't own anything. You're standing. I have property. You don't. I'm seated. Do you see how important furniture in establishing things are? So if I get down like this and I'm talking to the child, that changes the dynamic. Does that make sense? So if you have a boss that wants to be authoritative, you give them a big desk, you give them a big chair, the other chairs in the space need to be smaller, lower. Does that make sense? If you have a boss that's different, so let me ask you the next question. What is the piece of furniture that changes the philosophy of a throne? What is the piece of furniture that changes the philosophy of a throne?
The chair.
I have no idea.
Change the philosophy of the
Famous piece of furniture. People talk about it. Movies have been made about it. Books have been written about it. Let's start with the book. What changes the philosophy of a throne? Piece of furniture that changes the philosophy of a throne.
I wanted to, can I just
Is it a
say
stand?
Say anything. Why? You can't get it wrong.
Oh.
A stool.
Keep going. A stool.
Yeah, I was thinking of
Be
literal.
Is it like a
Right, a
stand?
side table,
No?
a stand,
Hey, has anybody ever heard of King Arthur and the what?
round table.
Round table. Why are they saying King Arthur and the round table? Why are they bringing the table into this situation? Because we go from I am the boss and you guys are nothing to I am important, but you get a vote, you get a vote, you get a vote, you get a vote, you get a vote. We're all equal because it's a round table. All the knights got the same amount. I am no longer the only one. So we go from what? We go from
Me, myself, and I.
we go from authoritarian to democracy. We all get a vote. Do you understand?
Yes.
And what are we using to do it, you guys? Furniture.
Right.
We go from a throne to a round table,
Okay.
right? And you're like, Mrs. Lovely. Oh, very nice for you. You're just so cute. But why does it matter to us now? I'm gonna tell you why it matters to us now, is because here's the thing. If you understand the thinking, you understand how to design for people. So I used to have, remember I started off with doing high-end residential, remember that? And so my partner and I, there was a woman who was getting divorced. Rich, woman is very rich. Beautiful furniture in her house. I'm like, what are we gonna do here, right? And she said, I'm gonna interview 3 companies, you're just one of the 3. And we were the youngest, meaning not young in age, because I'm 366, so anyway, 65. So I'm aging myself. And then my partner, so it was just that we were new designers. And so we really wanted the job, but how do we get a job? She wants to be divorced, everybody's gonna provide the same stuff, she already has nice stuff. So I was like, oh, we gotta get the job. So I thought about it, you know, and I got a problem solved. So I'm like, oh, I want a job so bad. So I had an idea. So I called my partner, I said, I think we're gonna get the job. She's like, maybe. And I said, no, I really do, I think we're gonna get a job. She goes, okay, I'll let you go, because she didn't want to be, you know, she wanted to be the back of the house kind of girl. Anyway, so I went out and I said, can I ask you for a favor? This is a client. I said, I know you're going to interview other companies. Can you ask them the same thing that I'm going to ask you to do with me? And she goes, okay, what is that? And I said, ask them why they're providing whatever they're providing. And she said, oh, that's a great idea. I'll ask you and I'll ask them. I said, great. But I had a motive because I had one answer that was gonna get me the job. So all the other stuff was great, but I provided a round table in her dining room, right? But I didn't know if the other people were also gonna provide a round table in the dining room. So my why question was very important for her to ask the other people. Because if the other answers were, oh, because it fits the space better, or because it's a beautiful table, they were not gonna get the job. Because here was my answer. Why did I pick the round table and make that the question? Anybody know? I gave you all the information at this point as to why that was the piece of furniture that was going to get me the job.
Family time?
What? Why can't you have family time at a rectangular table?
Because of the 2 ends, and then she's getting divorced. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. If you have a rectangular table, somebody's missing.
Yeah.
And she had kids. So then the kid wants to, kids fight over who sits where in the important part. Round table, none of that. She has guests over, there's nobody missing.
Right.
That was my answer to her. So that answer met her need to wash that man right out of her hair. You all understand?
Yeah.
So it's not just important to provide the right stuff, it's important to know why you're providing it, because you can beat the other competitors. Do you follow? That was so good. You are the first one who got it. That is so good. Do you all understand what I'm teaching you? Every single thing I say, it's always about how to think. Make sense?
Yeah.
So let's look at that. Our first piece of furniture. There it is. There's the throne, and there's the pharaoh. Do you see how he's seated? He's in the chair. He's taller than the rest of them, and he owns furniture, and they don't, and they're standing. You follow that? And then there's the round table with the kids, and then there's the round table. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And those are psychological considerations. We're gonna pause there. You can pause